caring more.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, this nation will fall. It will be taken over, and our ability to worship God freely and minister to people and live out a Christian life could be sorely hampered. And I mean,
yeah,
you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I know I do, and I had the same conversation with the team this past Sunday. We had communion at church this past Sunday, and when we were having communion, I kind of started off with this idea to reflect, because communion is about remembering and reflecting upon what Jesus did on the cross.
Right. Yeah, we don't believe, as the Catholics do, or some Catholics, I'm not sure, that when you partake in communion, that it actually turns into the flesh of Christ and the blood of Christ. It is purely symbolic, but it is very meaningful.
Right. And kind of what I urged the team to think about was also what they're in the same time of reflection, not necessarily as part of communion, but in the same time of reflection, think about how good it is for us to be in this place, to use these gifts that God gives us to share, with others.
I mean, this building can exist. For example, the building that we're in right now is a church, and it exists out in the open. Anybody can drive by it, an atheist, a Satanist, a Christian, a Muslim, and it's not immediately burned to the ground. It's not raided.
Yeah.
It's not, razed to the ground. We can freely be here, and our signs are up, just advertising us as a church. And we could honestly go down a path where, none of that is allowed, where we'd all have to be privately worshiping within private homes, and such as the Christians in Rome,
or the underground church in China.
Yeah, the underground right now. The underground church in China. Many Christian Chinese are having to worship secretly.
Yeah,
secretly.
I used to work at a church in San Diego, and that church, it was actually a church plant here in the United States, but they had a main church hub in India, and they're missionaries from India.
Interesting?
Yeah.
Missionaries to America from India?
Yes. And they had a network of churches in India. They have, they had like 40 churches in India, but they're all small churches in individual homes. And I think maybe 3 or 4 of them had actual buildings, but the majority of them were in homes because, as you might have guessed, in India, it's not very popular to be a Christian, even though the largest Christian church in the world is in India.
Mm-hmm.
It's an absolutely massive church. Think of the biggest mega churches here in the U.S., combine them, not even close.
Wow.
It's a huge, huge church, and they do a lot of good stuff. But those other smaller churches in India, from this group that I used to work with, they've had so many hard times. Like the pastor was talking about how there was one time one of his co-pastors in one of those churches, some local Indian government officials, I don't know whether they were police or somebody, but they were kind of on a tirade and trying to rid the area of Christianity. And so I think they might have they either hired these folks to do this, or they went and did it themselves. But they walked into one of the churches while the pastor was speaking and walked up to him right there on stage and shot him, killed him in front of his congregation, and basically told the congregation, if you don't leave, we're going to kill you all too. So we don't have to deal with that here.
Right.
And people, I think a lot of times Christians,
we don't have to deal with that. That's state sanctioned.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there are, sadly, church shooters. But I digress. Go
yeah.
ahead.
But I think a lot of times we get, as Christians here in America, we get complacent and we get lazy, and we don't realize how much people actually have to fight for God.
North Korea,
Yeah.
Pakistan, Iran. Yeah. It's Iraq.
And at any point during any one of these episodes, if you guys have a question you need to ask us, or you have a topic that you want us to discuss, please reach out to us at patriotpravda1776@gmail.com. That is truly the best and easiest way to reach out to us. It's one that gives me the alert on my phone. It makes it go ding. Also, you could reach us at our social media.
We've got Facebook, Twitter, Getter, Truth Social, TikTok, and Instagram.
Yeah, and a lot of those are screen names either at Patriot Pravda or Patriot Pravda 1776. You could definitely find us if you search Patriot Pravda. You can find us also on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. Some of those podcasting platforms are SoundCloud, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, Stitcher, and what was that other one that you said, Rob, the other day?
Double Pod.
We're also on Double Pod. So they're quickly adding up, but you can definitely find us on any one of those. And don't forget about any of our previous episodes as well. This is show 4, so if this is the first one that you're hearing, there is more where these shenanigans come from. So go check it out.
But moving on, back to the United States, in a state called Alaska.
Yes, our lovely home state.
It is. It's a beautiful state.
I'm so glad I call it home.
I'm glad you love it, because some people get here and there's two types of people. There's ones that get here and they love it and they want to make it home. And then there's the other kind.
Yeah.
They want to leave it almost immediately.
Yeah, they're like, why am I here?
Yeah.
Dark 20 hours a day? What? On the winter.
And I've seen them both. I, myself, was one pretty much as soon as I got off the plane. Now, granted, I did get here in June, not of this year, 11 years ago. And within a couple hours, I knew that this place was going to be home.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I came up in September last year for a job interview, and I immediately fell in love with it. I'm like, oh, this is it. This is where I want to go. This is home. It reminded me a lot of Pennsylvania back home,
yeah,
but it's more grand.
And I hail from Massachusetts, and it does have some Massachusetts vibes to it to a degree. But yeah,
the land and
yeah,
the nature, yeah,
not necessarily the mountains by any means, because it's just the grandeur of the mountains. And I mean, it's right outside Anchorage. I mean, you get off the plane in Anchorage and it's just boom right there.
Yeah, and there's nothing like it. I've never seen it, like areas like this. Like I came from San Diego. We had mountains in San Diego, but not like this.
Right, I've been to San Jose. I've been to just like Fort Hunter Liggett, California, which is about 3 hours east.
Yeah.
Of San Jose, and I've been to L.A. Sadly, I was in L.A. beginning of this year.
L.A. is so bad.
Yeah, and that's that goes right back to the Democrats and how their failed policies have turned that into a rat hole.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just outside the airport at LAX, I mean, within 5 minutes of the airport, it was trash piled up. It looked like I was deployed to Afghanistan a number of years ago, and to me, it almost one of these streets resembled downtown Coast City.
Yeah.
Just the amount of trash and human waste and just people living in squalor. And it's like 5 minutes from the airport, which is selling stuff in the in the shops inside there, for there's different things for sale, but in some of these high end shops, it's there were items that were like statues that were had gold plating and different things like that were going for $10,000.
Yeah.
And it's just it's the contrast.
Yeah.
Is impressive.
Yeah, and they fooled a lot of people into thinking that they care about those people in those situations.
Yeah, and the number of rundown RVs that line the streets, and again 5 minutes from the airport, is unreal.
Yeah.
RVs that don't have any wheels on them, that are on blocks, and they do that to make it harder for people to tow them. But also, they've become basically domiciles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So now it's illegal to take them off the street.
Yep.
And so now you've just got thousands of RVs lining the street, which were already narrow to begin with. Abandoned cars. I mean, I went by this one area, and there was I want to say it was probably a 2015 Nissan Juke. Completely gutted.
Oh, yeah.
There was no doors, no engine, no axles. It was just
the frame,
the body and frame. That's all it was. And it just sit there.
Oh, and it will sit there.
Yep. Because there's no money to take it. I mean, nobody's going to own up to being the owner of it. Not that there isn't an owner anymore, but there's no money for the state or the city, rather, to come and take it and impound it or send it off to be crushed.
Yeah, and if someone wanted to come in and try to come in with like a mobile plasma cutter and try to, piecemeal the metals from it, they probably get a citation from the city for being out there.
Yeah, and there was another an older Cadillac that was sitting out, probably an early 2000s Cadillac that was obviously being lived in.
Yeah,
same thing, falls under the domicile because somebody lives, eats, and sleeps in it.
Yeah. Then that same issue was beginning to plague San Diego as well.
Mm-hmm.
But in San Diego you can't stay in one spot. You get tagged, or they do come and take it. I've seen them move vehicles, even stuff that doesn't have wheels.
Right. But where does that all hail from? Where do all those policies come from? They come from voting.
Yeah.
And what we have here in Alaska now is ranked choice voting.
The biggest problem that I think we have, one of the biggest problems we have in Alaska, besides the local Alaskan Democratic Party and our rhino senator, but probably our ranked choice voting system is the next one on the list.
Yeah, and I think that it was come up with, and there's some talk that Lisa Murkowski and her office had a lot to do with getting this ranked choice voting. Allegedly, getting this in, and it's unproven, as I said before, allegedly, but it really gave her kind of a leg up in this.
Yeah.
And if any of you don't really know what ranked choice voting is, I do have a small clip that I'm going to play.
And we're going to pause through it and discuss as we go through.
This, yes. So here we go.
Alaskans will use a new election system starting in 2022, and it is a two-step process. Step 1 is the open Pick One primary. All candidates appear on the same ballot, and all voters receive the same ballot.
Okay, pause. So it said all candidates are on the same ballot. So
yes, that's just step 1.
Yes.
Yep. Then there could be 8, 10 people that are running for election.
Yeah. In any party. So it's all candidates from all parties are on one ballot, and everyone gets the same ballot.
Yes, and that's step 1.
Yes.
So pretty typical to a degree.
Right.
All right, moving on.
Everyone votes for just their favorite candidate, and the top 4 vote getters go on to the general election. Remember, in the Pick One primary, you can only vote for one candidate. Step 2 is the general election. This is where ranked choice voting kicks in. Ranked choice voting gives you the freedom to select your favorite candidate and then rank other candidates in order of preference. Let's say we're using ranked choice voting to decide what to eat for dinner tonight.
All right, pause before we get into this. So they have the Pick One, and then there's the general voting there. And that voting is then they take everybody that made it through that thing into made it through the pick one.
Yeah, and there was only the top 4 that made it to that.